Martinez, all we have been asking for all along is for justice to be done after you were kidnapped and brutally killed, treated less than even an animal. Some prime suspects concerning your death have already joined other criminals at the Kondengi maximum prison. It's not time for us to smile yet. If that is justice already taking its course, so shall it be until you can finally rest in peace. Hi there to you all viewers of Equinoxe Television. Thank you so much for joining us on this very special edition of your news this Saturday in the English language. We begin right away with our major story tonight. It has been over 2 months of curiosity among public opinion in Cameroon and even in the diaspora since journalist Martinez Zogo was kidnapped and inhumanly killed in Yaoundé. Cameroonians from all walks of life and even those of the international community have been clamoring for justice to take its course. And we are still talking about prime suspects were later arrested on the instructions of the President of the Republic following investigations. As we speak, the main people allegedly behind the kidnap and killing of Martinez have been sent to the Kondengi maximum prison by the military tribunal in Yaoundé. The hope of every human being with a conscience is for all those who participated in the killing of Martinez Zogo to be sentenced according to the law. That sentence is a life imprisonment. That is our major story. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you so much for according us your time this evening on this special edition of the news in the English language. We told you in the headlines it was a long night at the Yaoundé Military Tribunal. Amogu Bedinga, Colonel Justin Danwe and Maxime Eko have been put under pre-trial detention at the Kondengi principal prison in Yaoundé. They are accused of, or they are now defendants of having a hand in the kidnap, torture and brutal killing of journalist Martinez Zogo. Immaculate Fogwe completes the story for us.
The last court session, March 3, 2023, took a new twist as far as journalist Martinez Zogo murder case is concerned. It was at 6 a.m. early this morning that Colonel Justin Danwe, Maxime Eko, Director of External Research, and at least 20 members of the General Directorate of External Research were accused of having a hand in the kidnapping, torture, and later assassination of journalist Martinez Zogo. They have been put under free trial detention at the Kondengi Principal Prison in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. Jean-Pierre Amogu Belinga, on his part, is accused of complicity in the torture of the late journalist. He's also on pre-trial detention at the Kondengi Principal Prison. Some other detainees connected to the case, such as Bruno Bijang, journalist at Vision Card, Colonel Etundin Soe, father-in-law of Amogu Belinga, Yaren Kile, the driver of Business Tycoon, and other suspects have been released. At the moment, no detainee has been charged with the murder or assassination of the journalist. Those currently detained will have to stay behind bars for 6 months awaiting trial. The judge, who had earlier been handling the case, Joel Bias, was taken off the case after being suspected of trying to connive with some of the major suspects.
And now, who are those prime suspects, now defendants, in the Martinez Zogo assassination case? They have been put under pre-trial detention at the Kondengi Maximum Prison. Babula Jonathan answers the question in the report which comes up next. He tells us who Amogu Belinga, Maxime Eko and Colonel Etundi Swe and Lieutenant Colonel Justin Danwe are in this report.
The recent incarceration of decision to detain Mr. Amugu Belinga, the patron of Anecdote, and with others who have been guilty, who are involved in the torture and kidnapping of the renowned journalist Martinez Zogo. Well, the news, we have been waiting for that news for some time now. It has taken so much longer.
From a very modest childhood to the head of a media empire, Amugu Belinga is today a defendant in the Martinez Zogo assassination case. Before the assassination of journalist Martinez Zogo, several scandals have come upon the controversial figure. His accusation of people from the Beti land as fundamentally lazy, dishonest, cynical, and wicked provoked reactions and debates. Other scandals linked to Amugu Belinga include his exchange with former Minister Patrice Ambasala on the lack of gratitude following the purchase of a land at 80 million francs CFA in Kribi, the broadcasting of his telephone exchanges with Cameroon's ambassador in the Central African Republic and the reaction of the ambassador to his superiors, and his qualification of people from the West region, notably the Bamlikis, as being poor guys. Another defendant in the assassination of Martinez Zogo is Leopold Maxime Eko. He is a police commissioner who has been at the head of the General Directorate of External Research since 2010. Holder of a doctorate degree in the science of information and communication from the University of Paris Marne-la-Vallée in France, Eko is an expert in economic intelligence. Before his appointment to head the General Directorate for External Research, he was Director of General Information at the Delegation of National Security. Colonel Etundi Swe is another defendant in the case. He is a former commander of the Presidential Guard. Colonel Etundi Swe started his military career as a Presidential Guard in 1985 after graduating from the Yaoundé Military School. He served as commander of the Armored Tank Battalion in Douala. The native of Mefu and Afamba Division in the central region of Cameroon, is married and the father of 3 children, including Melissa, one of the 3 wives of Amugu Belinga. Another defendant in the case of assassination of journalist Martinez Zogo, Lieutenant Colonel Justin Danwe, is said to have led the operation of the killing of Martinez Zogo. The officer of the National Armed Forces of Cameroon is also a writer, author of the book Le Génie du Mal, L'assaut des enfants soldats, on the recruitment of child soldiers by rebel groups. They are all in pre-trial detention at the Kondengi Principal Prison in Yaoundé.
And now, after Martinez Zogo was announced kidnapped and not yet killed, chiefs of the Leke of the Central region came out and promised help to those who kidnapped and might have been killing their son. They gave 45 days to anybody who has a hand or in connection with the death or the kidnap of Martinez Zogo. Let's now have more about the outing of the Leke chiefs in the report which comes up next.
Chief's apology letter addressed to President Paul Biya shocks many Cameroonians who still respect the head of state to ensure assassins of Martinez Zogo be investigated and brought to book. They who had accused the Defense and Security Forces and their chief commander for being responsible for the death of the journalist hailed the Leke chiefs and supported their first declaration that Zogo's body with maggots on it would not be buried in Leke but in Vomeka, from where hails the head of state qualified the chief's new reaction as backpedaling, politically geared. According to baffled Cameroonians, it is possible the Leke chiefs changed their stance to disappoint and abandon justice seekers along the road because of intimidation at the State Defense Secretariat set in Yaoundé, where they were summoned after their first bitter reaction against the head of state and his administration. These commentators go further to speculate the summon diluted their anger, after which they were received for an important consultation at the residence of the Leke elite, Minister Benyuan Dong Sumhet, in charge of missions at the Presidency of the Republic on January 27 at 5 p.m. While there, they declared they regret blaming the National Defense and Security Forces and the Supreme Commander for the death of their son and brother. According to them, bitter emotions took a greater part of them, compelling them to make the excessive statements and allegations on the crime scene. Thus, they presented deepest and sincere apologies to President Paul Biya, promising him their usual relentless support, knowing fully well their backpedaling will shock Cameroonians and the sons and daughters of Leke in particular. The chiefs passed them countless apologies. To show they are not completely forsaking Cameroonians, these Leke chiefs say they will continue mounting pressure for Martinez Zogo's killers to be arrested and punished in accordance with the laws of the Republic, so that it serves as a severe example to anyone who dares or who may be tempted in future to attack the Leke as a community.
And now, considering the gravity of how Martinez Zogo was brutally killed, President Paul Biya sent out a communique ordering for proper investigations to be carried out to ensure that all the murderers are brought to book. Our reporter comes back to the communique, which was signed by Ferdinand Gongo.
2 weeks after the kidnapping and assassination of Martinez Zogo, the Amplitude FM boss in Yaoundé, ceaseless condemnations from the national and international community, the national and international press flooded to the Unity Palace, waking from slumber its occupant, President Paul Biya. Also shocked by the news of the gruesome assassination of the corruption investigator and reporter in Ebogo, Yaoundé, he sought to know those behind the mask. In reaction, he turned to his Secretary General Ferdinand Gongo, who upon the authorization of President Paul Biya, addressed an urgent communique on January 27, 2023 to the Secretary of State for Defense in charge of the Gendarmerie to create a joint Gendarmerie and Police Inquiry Commission to shed light on the murder case. The communique reads, I have the honor to ask you on the very high instructions from the President of the Republic to kindly open an investigation in collaboration with the General Delegation for National Security into the circumstances surrounding the death of journalist Martinez Zogo and to establish who is responsible. You will kindly inform me of the conclusions of your investigations for the very high information of the head of state, Galax Eve Landry Etoga, in charge of the National Gendarmerie. After receiving this communique from the Secretary General in the Presidency of the Republic, quickly mobilized a team of investigators with the collaboration of the police. As fruits of the investigations, Jean-Pierre Amogu Belinga, CEO of Vision Card TV, principal suspect, was arrested on Monday, February 6th. Followed were Justin Danwe, Lieutenant Colonel Leopold Maxime Eko, Etundi Nsue, retired colonel, plus several commandos, as well as journalist Bruno Bijang, general manager of Vision Card TV, who was later released. The suspects were interrogated for weeks at the State Defense Secretariat and presented before the examining magistrates of the Yaoundé Military Court. On Saturday, February 4, they were finally charged by the Cameroonian justice system of having played a role in the kidnapping and murder of Martinez Zogo, while most of them were taken to the Kondengi Central Prison. Bruno Bijang, Etundi Nsue, alongside some others, were released.
And that communique by the President of the Republic, which was signed by the Secretary General at the Presidency of the Republic, Ferdinand Gongo, was closely followed by another communique this time around from the Minister for Communication, Rene Emmanuel Sadi, in which he was reassuring the general public that all is being done to ensure that the murderers of Martinez Zogo be brought to book. Let's now come back to the communique signed by Rene Emmanuel Sadi in this report.
The government of Cameroon has once again reassured public opinion of its determination to shed light on the death of Martinez Zogo and that justice be made. This is contained in a press release signed by the Cameroon's Minister of Communication, Rene Emmanuel Sadi, the government spokesperson. The government of Cameroon, through this release, also reaffirmed that Cameroon is a state of law where fundamental freedom, including freedom of the press, are guaranteed and constitute the foundation of the country's democracy. For this reason, he justifies these through a large number of existing political parties, the multitude of associations, non-governmental organizations and press organs who freely carry out their activities according to the law of the country. Concerning the justice system, the government recalled that the law is fully respected, including the principle of separation of power. The press release also reiterates that Cameroon is not a monarchy, rather a republic. The president is therefore not a monarch nor an autocrat. Thus, his stay in power is the willingness of the people. It was an opportunity for the government, through the Minister of Communication, to recall that Paul Biya has been the architect of democracy in Cameroon since 1990. The assassination of Martinez Zogo was a shock not just to Cameroonians but the world at large. According to the minister, some international media organs without reputation reporting on the death of Martinez Zogo have used this as a pretext to judge the country wrongly. The government also castigate Reporters Without Borders and the French newspaper Le Monde for making excessive declarations, wrong analysis and imaginary speculations which has no relation with the reality on ground.
We continue talking about the Martinez murder case. If the killers of Martinez Zogo are known and transferred, or some of them accused of being behind this gruesome killing, have been transferred to the Kondengui Maximum Prison in Yaoundé, it is also thanks to an inquiry commission order to be put in place by the President of the Republic, President Paul Biya, and also the pressure mounted by the media, especially the international press such as RFI, Jeune Afrique, Reporters Without Borders, and many others, including the Washington Post. Let's now have more in the report which comes up next.
Early Saturday, February 4, 2023, Amugu Belinga, CEO of the Anecdote Group, Justin Danwe, Leopold Maxime Eko, and the members of the commando suspected of having kidnapped, tortured, and then killed Martinez Zogo were finally charged by the Yaoundé Military Court and incarcerated in the Kondengui Central Prison. This is thanks to the Joint Gendarmerie and Police Inquiry Commission put in place by the President of the Republic, Paul Biya, and the relentless pressure for justice mounted by the national and international press. Some media organs kept following and reporting on the case until the suspected killers of journalist Martinez Zogo were exposed. One of these prominent media organizations was the Washington Post, the most dominant newspaper in the United States, published daily in Washington, D.C. In their most recent publication siding with the Committee to Protect Journalists, the Washington Post published the hashtag, "We demand justice for Martinez Zogo." Cameroonian journalist Martinez Zogo, who reported on large-scale government corruption, was recently found murdered. We demand a transparent and credible investigation. Another international media organ which has been largely vocal on the murder of Martinez Zogo is Jeune Afrique. The organ has made several outings, even on their numerical platforms, demanding for justice to take its course. More French international TV stations have been dwelling on the Martinez affair. Radio France International and TV stations have recently been hosting several talk shows in a bid to press for the murderers of Martinez Zogo to face the law accordingly.
And now the arrest and detention of Amogu Belinga and 20 others at the Konegi Maximum Prison will be somehow good to most international media houses, like you heard in the other report, who kept on reporting on the death of Martinez Zogo and call for justice. Franz Venkat and David Sengmont also added their voices onto those of other international platforms.
The popular foreign news channel France 24 on the Eye on Africa program report that the death of Martinez Zogo on Sunday 22nd of January 2023 sent shock waves across the country.
What they've done to him is inhumane. He'd tried to reach the Cameroonian people. He'd criticize the things that are going wrong. He'd say the truth without any covering up. We don't know if it's because of that truth that he's gone, that he was killed.
France 24 says the International Press Institute, a Vienna-based press freedom organization, urged the Cameroonian authorities to promptly investigate the horrific murder and ensure that those responsible are brought to justice. The African News also condemns the death of the 51-year-old Yaoundé-based journalist who tackled cases of corruption, not hesitating to question important personalities by name.
How
can you leave us in this situation? We have lost interest in the profession.
Cette profession.
Pourquoi, se demande le journal L'Avenir, avec en une la photo du journaliste.
David Sengmont, on its part, exposes a society with several media houses whose journalists are not respected and where press freedom is tempered. The media urged the Cameroon government to carry out a fast investigation and let the results be made public.
Qu'est-il arrivé au journaliste camerounais Martinez Zogo? Par qui?
RFI, on the other hand, worry on the situation of journalists in Cameroon. The Radio France International, a French channel based in France, say Martinez killers must be punished. For Africa 24, Martinez Zogo has been threatened several times, as he was once jailed in 2020 and later released. It goes ahead to add that the journalist has been a victim of hatred. AFB and many other international media houses join their voices to condemn the killing of Martinez Zogo. They call on justice for the death of the media icon.
And now let's talk about the hero of most viewers of Equinoxe television. We are talking about our reporter, Guy Zogo. Cameroonians say the follow-up on the murder case of Martinez Zogo by Equinoxe television has once again shown that the channel is a voice of the voiceless and also the agenda setter. These Cameroonians were speaking to our reporter, Smart Jikan Gabriel. Let's listen to them in this report.
Devant le tribunal militaire pour Equinoxe télévision, Rodrigue Ngassi, Joël Essenge, Guy Zogo.
Equinoxe TV's Guy Zogo has been applauded for his steadfastness throughout the hearing of suspects linked to the Martinez Zogo murder case at the military tribunal in Yaoundé. Some Cameroonians who met on the street say the minute-to-minute updates on the Martinez Zogo saga that was done by Equinoxe TV makes them the leading TV station in Cameroon.
The truth is that we thank the flexibility and the effort I've been putting throughout this scenario, fighting for a dead colleague, my brother. It's a kudos to Equinoxe TV. KTV has been doing a marvelous job regarding this same issue.
Equinoxe Television is one of the best TV channels in Cameroon, even beyond Cameroon. On the case of Martinez Zogo, I can appreciate Equinoxe for their continuous talk, programs and education they've been rendering Cameroonians with regard to this Martinez Zogo's case. And I think what we need as Cameroonians is information on events as such. Equinoxe Television is giving us the best of information we need on a day-to-day basis and as the case unfolds.
I appreciate Equinoxe TV for the update that they have been giving us about the Martinez Zogo case in Yaoundé. We really appreciate Equinoxe for that.
These Cameroonians go further to advise journalists of Equinoxe TV.
People should keep doing what you know how to do best, and I always encourage you, your sense of responsibility, your sense of investigative journalism is always an applaud from me.
With the verdict given by the judges of the Yaoundé Military Tribunal, many say it's time for Guy Zogo to have a rest after having sleepless night, just to give updates about the Martinez Zogo saga.
Colonel Raymond Thomas Etundiswe qui a été remis en liberté.
And good job out there to Guy Zogo. Kudos to you, and continue being balanced and telling nothing but the truth. And viewers, that does it for the first part of the news. Don't go away. Talking Points comes up next. Welcome back, viewers. We continue talking about the Martinez Zogo murder case. Our guest tonight is a lawyer, is a legal mind, Barrister Kamwa Limen. Thank you so much, Barrister, for accepting to be our guest tonight. We will be explaining to the common man, to Cameroonians, in the common man parlance, what has been happening so far since the prime suspects of the killing of Martinez were arrested. They went to the state secretariat and now to the military tribunal and now to the Kondengi maximum prison. Barrister, once again, thank you so much for accepting to be our guest tonight. Can you situate our viewers what has been happening from when the prime suspects of the Martinez murder case were arrested and now that until now that they have been taken to the Kondengi maximum prison?
You know, from the moment Martinez was assassinated, kidnapped and assassinated, it was the duty of the investigators to identify offenders, possible offenders, and to carry on investigations. And it's true that at one point we're talking about time not respected, but I said in some other interviews that mindful of the complexity of the investigations, it would actually drag on for a period of time. However, we are thankful that the investigative phase has been accomplished, is finished, and then they have been sent to pre-trial detention, and they will pass in front of an examining magistrate because the offense for which they are to be properly investigated upon again, or judicial inquiry is open, it's a felony, which is the sanction is life imprisonment. So they have to, it's obligatory that they pass in front of an examining magistrate, and for that to be done, some of them were released, as I read from the document, and Mugu Belinga and the other military officers were actually sent to pre-trial detention at the Kondengi prison, if I'm correct. Yes. Okay,
Barrister. And now, Barrister, what the accusation levied on the prime suspects who are now the defendants is like assault which resulted to death. In French, it is torture par aide. What does that really mean, and is that a heavy criminal offense?
It is punishable with life imprisonment. It's punishable, it's an offense. It means that torture, we know torture, you inflict pains on somebody, inhuman treatment pains onto somebody, and the effect is, though you did not contemplate death, but it resulted to death. That is the difference between murder and that offense. Murder is that you go in properly to kill, you see. And so this one is that because of the torture, the person died. You did not have an intention, you see. So that's the difference between murder, which is punishable by death if it's capital murder, and torture occasioning death, you see. So it is a very, very serious offense. It's extremely serious, and the sanction is life imprisonment.
And Barrister, now that they have been accused of torture, does it mean that we are still looking for those who actually commanded for Martinez to be killed and those who actually committed the act of killing Martinez?
No. If there are already persons who were if preliminary inquiries have been opened against individuals, they are not looking for the people killed. No, they are looking to see if the investigations was done properly. That is, if the evidence brought against those persons were correct. So it's just the preliminary inquiry is an extension, it's a kind of investigation, but properly done. You see, done by the examining magistrate, who is a magistrate of the bench at the courts. So it is a phase that, if it's done with that phase, then the matter will be sent to court. If they find that they actually committed the offenses, that if they have sufficient proof that the offense was committed by the offenders. It could be found that there was partial commission, and some people might be acquitted if they find out that they did not participate in one way or the other in the commission of the offense. But their situation now, they are no longer suspects, they are defendants. So it is more serious than being suspect. You see, now it is evident that there were sufficient proofs at the level of investigations that they participated in the killing of, or they perpetrated and participated in the killing of Martinez Zogo. That one is very certain from the investigation, that they have sufficient evidence for which they should respond. You see, so after this phase, as I said in so many other occasions, is a preliminary inquiry in front of the examining magistrate. Thereafter, those who if they rule that they actually committed the offense, then they'll go now into court, and then they'll become accused persons.
And now, Barrister, we know Jean-Pierre Amougou Belinga, Colonel Justin Danwe, and Maxime Equinoxe have been sent to the Kondengi prison. What is a possibility? What is coming up next?
Yes, simplicity, yes. It means that those people did not find any sufficient proofs that they committed. But don't be surprised that at the level of the preliminary inquiry, some of them come back. Because if they still carry on investigations and they think that there are elements proving, ascertaining that they committed such an offense, they'll still bring them back. Okay. More people could be brought into the case, according to the investigation that will be done by the by the examining magistrate.
Barrister, you're talking there about those who were released. You were answering to if they had a connection in the murder of Martinez Zogo or not. Now, to this question which I just asked, we know that Jean-Pierre Amougou Belinga is no news now, and Colonel Justin Danwe and Maxime Equinoxe are now in Kondengi. What is the next possibility?
Pierre, in front of the islander, they were already, from what I read, they were already they have already been informed of the charge levied against them, for which they'll pass in front of the examining magistrate, and so they will pass in front of the examining magistrate, who has 6 months renewable twice. That's about 18 months time period to carry on the investigation, and then at the end of it, will come with a conclusion which will be sent back to the State Council or the Commissaire du Gouvernement, who therefore will now send the matter to court if they confirm that actually there are sufficient proofs against them. And if some of them if they find that some of them they don't have sufficient proofs against some of those persons.
Maybe I will come back to the question. Maybe you explain now in greater detail, Barrister. Are we still looking for the actual killer of Martinez Zogo? Because it looks like the investigations are going to intensify as at now, because the other people who are now in Kondengi are being accused of assault, which means we are still looking for the killer of Martinez Zogo. Is that it?
We have 3 phases in matters concerning felonies. And so the very first phase, which is general for every offense, is that there should be an investigation. Investigation has as purpose, is done by the judicial police officers, which has as purpose to identify offenders who are alleged to have committed an offense. You see, and their responsibilities. And so we've just passed the first phase, which I must say congratulations to the judicial system, congratulations to Equinoxe and other Cameroonians who wanted justice to be done in the file. In my opinion, that is justice being done. And after investigations, if they discover that they don't have sufficient proofs that you committed such an offense, you'll be released like the others have been done. But once there are sufficient evidence against you that you must have committed that offense, that you committed or participated in the commission of that offense, for felony you move to the second stage, which I said is preliminary inquiry done by the examining magistrate. That phase equally is a kind of more intensive investigations that will be carried out against the people who've been brought in front of him. You see, so he takes over from the judicial officers and he can still delegate his powers through a regulatory commission to judicial police officers to carry certain aspects of the investigation on his behalf. But now he is the boss of the investigation, no longer the commissaire du gouvernement as it was before. And his role is to see that the offense, the people that have been sent in front actually committed such an offense, or there are enough sufficient evidence against those people. Now, why must he pass in front of an examining magistrate? It's because of the gravity of the offense. If the offense is sentenced for 10 years and above, the sentence is heavy. And so they want to be sure that before they bring you to stand trial, let them have sufficient proof that actually you committed that offense, instead of rushing and condemn somebody for 10 years and above, and then you discover later that maybe there was an error, you see. So it is for the sake of justice, proper justice, that the preliminary inquiries are ordered. And it's a novelty in the Criminal Procedure Code of 2005.
Thank you so much, Barrister, for accepting to be our guest tonight on Talking Point. Because of time constraints, we won't be able to take our interview to the end like we would have loved. All we want is for justice to be done and all the killers of Martinez Zogo be brought to book. Viewers, we thank you so much for being with us on this special edition. And don't go away, Equinoxe comes up next. That would be at 7 p.m. So stay with us on Equinoxe Television.